And there came a day unlike. Wait, no, that's been done. Who knows what evil lurks in. No, that is that other thing. What has yellow skin and rights? Ah, forget it. You're listening to Panelology. Excelsi, oh, damn it.
Welcome to episode 236 of Panelology. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian.
How you doing, Brian?
I'm doing pretty good right now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Emphatically, categorically good.
Yeah. All kinds of good stuff this week. Yeah.
Yes.
I nailed down my new job that's going to be coming up and turned in my notice for my old one.
Fantastic.
So, yeah. And other things happened this week.
Yes.
That were good. So.
Hey, a quick cold open thing before we get into the comics.
Sure.
A little bit more information following up on the future state stuff we talked about in a bonus episode last week.
Yeah.
The Flash from Justice League, who you mentioned?
Yes.
Not only will be appearing in the DC Holiday, like the $10 anthology book that comes out seasonally. They will be appearing as part of a Justice League team that is from a gender-flipped Earth.
Okay.
But this Flash is in fact a relative of that Earth's Flash, Jesse Quick, and is non-binary.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah. They also clarified this week that the future state and shattered stuff, the generations stuff, are no longer directly linked. That the Generations Shattered book is the book that was originally solicited as Generations Future State.
Okay.
That comes out in January. So,
okay.
Some things we'd asked about, we know a little bit more about.
There you go.
Yeah.
Kind of how information tends to work. Yeah.
Yep. Now, let's talk about books that came out this past week.
Yeah, let's do it.
How about you tell me about Red Atlantis #1, a book I was not brave enough to pick up in this particular week?
Well, I read this book today. Very happy that I waited until today because I would have been incredibly anxious otherwise. Honestly, regardless of either side, I would have been nervous reading this because this book is, it's by Stephanie Phillips. It's from Aftershock, and it is, I guess I should remember the artist is Robert Carey. This is about an event that happens on Election Day. Enough said there, huh? And
yeah. In case anyone wondered why you were anxious,
right? Exactly. Essentially, we start following this person into a voting polling location, and something happens to everyone's phones there, and then not everyone, but essentially like a lot of the people there go into this random violent state, and there's like just this mass slaughter. And then we kind of pull back a little bit, and we get panels that show this happened at 3 other locations as well. And so all at the exact same time. And we get this thing where we see there's certain people whose eyes have like just gone blank and white. Before this happened. And then we cut to like 10 minutes before that, and we see this girl who's watching a video instead of going to class. Her name is Emily, and her roommate's giving her a hard time about it. And then we get the impression that this is well, actually we get a timestamp that shows the event happens at 11:14, and her friend gets this blank eye thing, but doesn't turn violent like the other one. But like we find out that power has gone out all over at the same time. then we kind of cut to these two FBI agents who are investigating, and we kind of get the whole thing put together that all of these happened simultaneously. There was this something happened with cell phones simultaneously, and then there were these power outages. Oh, and by the way, at two of the locations, there was somehow a connection to Russian. Like in one, there was the only survivor was a Russian national,
Hmm.
and then they tracked the power outage to this apartment complex where we find out that the roommate Miriam of this girl is of Russian descent. She was born in Russia. She was completely raised in America, but so they come to question her, just trying to follow up on things. Not even. I love one of the things that I love about this is there's no accusation in any of it at this point, right? They're like, but it's weird, and we have to follow up and try to figure out what the hell happened, which seemed incredibly reasonable to me.
Right? Funny how
Yeah,
that works.
yeah. So like they're like, you know what? We're not even gonna like take you in for quite. Can we just walk with you while you're going to class and ask while you're going because we don't want to inconvenience you. I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing. Um, then this person shows up with and attacks the FBI agents and grabs their gun and says, acts like he knows who this girl is and calls her Miriam Pascal. And she's like, yeah, that's not my name. I don't know what's going on. And that's kind of where this issue ends.
Huh.
So super good setup that then leads directly into action we don't understand, but it is kind of exciting. So, and his statement to her is, sorry. She's like, I don't want to go with you, whatever. He's like, yeah, we have to go now, and I'm sorry, but it's up to us to stop World War III. And that's where it gets. It's like,
This
oh,
sounds cool.
yeah. Okay, this is. I was hesitant, but I'm glad that I read it because I really actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have to either, if not go back and pick this up, I'll at least grab this in trade when it comes out.
Yeah, yeah. And I'll be able
Yeah.
to let you know more about it by then.
Cool. How about Batman? You got caught up on this.
I did. So I read like 100, 101, and 102 this week.
How good is Harley in 100?
Oh my God. I was so happy about that. I tell you who else I am, and you'll hear it on my list of things coming out this week. But actually, the way that Punchline dealt with getting caught, like, I
Yeah.
like that character so much more now. I love how they have taken her and it would have been incredibly easy for them to just make her a Harley Quinn 2.0, right?
Yeah.
I am incredibly happy that they have decided to take her in such a different direction. And like, she is very clearly not crazy at all in the like loony kind of, over the top crazy.
She's in
Not,
control.
yeah,
Yeah.
completely to a scary degree. Yes. Yeah, I like it. Um, but so I liked her. I like Harley in this.
What
I
do you think
liked.
about Clown Hunter?
Wow. What a great character.
Right?
Yeah, because damn, it's hard to hate this character, but it's also incredibly hard to justify his actions.
I mean, at some level, he's almost just like, okay, if Batman didn't have the money and the ability to travel the world and do all these things, like, kind of what's the difference?
And had an obvious start because one of the whole things about the whole Batman is for who knows how long he had no idea who it was that killed his parents.
Right.
Clown Hunter has a very obvious target. He knows who it was. It was Joker and the Clown.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. That's why I said what a great character. Oh, just so hard because there's is it one of the issues, one of the stories in Batman 100 where he goes to confront Clown Hunter and says, yeah,
Yep.
I'm not gonna let you do this, right? But I understand your motivations and basically you've got one chance kind of thing, right? And then we get Clown Hunter's just like, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll stop after I finish what I need to do. It's like, oh, okay. And then he has to protect him from, this new ghost killer,
Ghost Maker?
ghost maker. I think that's right.
Yeah.
In this one. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot of complex character stuff going on in this. Like, there's nothing simple about any of these.
Yeah, I forget if we talked about it or if it's something Meg and I talked about. I think it was Meg who asked if Tynan's run was originally supposed to end with number 100. And in his newsletter, he mentioned that there is a version of history where that was the case.
Yeah.
It really feels with 101 and 102, like now that he knows he has basically an open run on this book, that he is seeding so many more things and layering in characters and story beats and ideas that will play out. I mean, he said point blank that will play out at least over 2021, but it feels like these could run at least a couple more years.
Well, that's one of the things I was going to say is very, very clearly, especially if you read like I did 100 to 102, there is a new paradigm that is set up for, like you said, there's all kinds of things. There's the Harley thing, there's the Joker thing, there's the
Grifter thing. Let's not forget about that.
Grifter and Halo, whoever that is. And I mean, there's a very long shot with that one, which I don't believe, but we'll come back to that in a minute.
Okay.
And there's the whole him and Catwoman thing. There's the whole Bruce is not a billionaire anymore. He has means. He's not broke by any stretch of the imagination. But he, as Lucius puts it, he can't 3D print new Batmobiles beneath the Wayne Enterprises building anymore.
I love that the first thing he does, by the way, is call Barbara back in to run as Oracle.
Yes.
And she's like, yeah, you have me here in part to help you fix your stuff, don't you?
And he doesn't deny it.
No denial whatsoever.
Yeah.
She has his number.
And this is, you know what? Here's the thing. I love because they kind of, Batgirl 50 came out last week, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, a couple weeks, I think.
Right. And basically ended with her kind of coming to a realization that I can be Batgirl and help. I can be Oracle and help. I can be Barbara Gordon and help and make a difference. Basically, she's willing to be whatever Gotham needs her to be.
Yeah, which I think makes sense. Like, it sounds like an obvious solution, but I don't know that I've really heard it stated that way. Maybe the answer to, well, who should Barbara Gordon be is let her be who she needs to be.
Yes. Yeah. And, it sounds like right now Batman needs her to be Oracle, so maybe she can be that for him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also like the line she has acknowledging Steph and Cass in the bat symbols again.
Yeah, now that they're wearing the bat signal. By the way, I love that line too. Are you sure this is going to be okay? Batman never asked permission.
Yep.
That was great. That was wonderful. Yeah, I like all, and there's the whole Batman Catwoman. She gives him 1 year to figure out what's going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. I like all of this setup that is now in place. Okay, now super quick. There is one long shot, with him telling Grifter something about Halo, right?
Yes.
Do you know what that long shot is? There's a character named Halo, right? That Batman has association with.
I am not super familiar, but I feel like I have at least heard of Halo.
Halo was a character from the original 80s run of Batman and the Outsiders.
Okay.
Yes. And it would just be an incredibly unusual something to pull in, especially to have Grifter involved in. But, maybe unusual and not expected is what they're going for. I don't know.
Yeah. Stranger things have certainly happened.
Indeed. Yeah, in comic books. Yeah, imagine that.
I know.
Liked it very much. Very excited about what's coming up.
Hard same. DCeased. We've got Dead Planet number 5 and Hope at World's End number 13, both out this week.
Yeah, so I love I've mentioned how much I love this whole world. I love the idea. I'm going to talk a little bit about Hope at World's End first. I love the idea that Superman and Jimmy are basically pulling a fast one over on Lex.
Yes.
Yeah, who who ostensibly, they've told him that they need him because he's the smartest man now in the world, right? Certainly, because there's not many people left. That they need him to solve this problem, and then the idea that him them coming to him because he's the smartest guy and he's the only one that can solve the problem, and then it's them setting him up to come to the real, like they're a step ahead of him. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it.
I also will just never get over Jimmy Olsen with an eye patch.
I know. Pirate Jimmy. It's so good. This whole world. And then we have DCeased, and then we have Dead Planet, which is this is probably my favorite of all the DCeased stuff. I don't like I think with this one, Tom Taylor has basically hit his stride and know where he wants to go, and like the way he has got the characters humming in this one is just beautiful.
Well, I think it's very much a product of very skillful world building. Like, we had the first DCeased that was heavy action, and basically, the if these issues are all he ever gets to do, it's fine, it's self-contained, the end.
Right.
But from that, we had the one shot with Constantine and Booster Gold and Ted Cord and time travel. We had Unkillables, we've had Hope at World's End. There's so much like world building that has happened. There are so many slices of where everyone's at, what factions have popped up. And Dead Planet really feels like the book where we get to see all of those things intersect.
You are absolutely right. I think that's why I said, kind of it all comes together and is
Yeah.
humming for all of this. Can I tell you? And I hate it, but I have to have two quotes of the week this week.
I will allow it.
This one is so perfect.
Brian's quote of the week, part 1.
So, specifically, this issue is where some of them reunite for the first time, and that is Jason Todd and Damian as Batman, right?
I think this is the exact moment I wanted to bring up as an example of how well everything comes together. So,
Yeah.
yes.
And so they come up and Damien comes up and walks up and says something, a Bat family trip with Ravager and Swamp Thing. And Jason looks at him and says, actually, Rose and I are married. And Cass says, so she's family too. What? She can sometimes see the future and she still married you? And then he gives both of them a hug, Jason and Ravager, and says, I'm so damn happy for you. And then he looks at Ravager and says, welcome to the family, Rose. You'll fit right in, especially if you brought complex unresolved father issues. I brought so many. Especially
so
knowing the whole Damien and Terminator
Slade.
issues, where for a period Damien thought he might be his dad. It's like, what?
Right.
No. Yeah. Slade. Yeah. Oh my word. So good.
Yeah, I love that moment so much. We also have Constantine putting a team together.
Yes.
And I know never to trust John Constantine, but I also know he usually gets the job done, and I don't know how this will go badly, but I know it will go so badly.
It will, but man, does he unleash, like, he is really, really doing some things that are, like, you only can hope that the ends somehow justify some of these means.
Yeah.
Because, man, does he wreak some havoc in this, huh?
We also see another orphan wield the power of Shazam.
Yes, we do. That was brilliant, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, and wield it well, shall we say. Yeah.
She doesn't need many words, but when she speaks the ones she chooses, Shazam.
Yeah. And then the fact that John Constantine essentially just tells off Spectre.
Yes.
Yeah, where Spectre comes to like question him and say that basically tell him that yeah I can stop what you're doing and he's like yeah Spectre, but you're the spirit of vengeance. What the fuck do you think I'm being motivated by right now? And he's like, okay, good night, and takes off. It's like, damn, there you go. So good.
Yeah. I tell you what, though, I keep waiting for Raven to show up.
Oh, right, because or somehow be involved because we know, there's a whole Trigon thing going on.
Yep.
Yep.
Young Justice number 20.
This is the end of this run.
It is, but you know what? I personally, by myself, will be a riot of one in the streets if we don't get more, because this is such a perfect setup
Yeah.
to, like, the next chapter of what Young Justice could be.
I agree. I don't think this is the end for these. I think they know they've got some great characters here that they can do a lot with, specifically with Naomi and Jenny Hex. Right?
Well, and it truly feels like, I mean, two things. We know we're getting another Naomi miniseries. That's already confirmed. But it truly feels like too many ideas are introduced in this issue to not continue. If it were just they go to Mount Justice and fight Red Tornado and say, okay, well, we're going to hang out here and train, like, okay, maybe. I could see that being a longer term thing. But the fact that they introduce this idea that Jon Stewart wants to shut down Teen Lantern and everyone needs to meet with the Justice League and blah, 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 that really makes me think that this is like, okay, maybe we take 6 months, maybe we take a year, we come back, they've been training some, and now they're working as a unit.
Yep, I do love that the We're Young Justice shot at the top of that panel where it's like the team shot.
Yes,
that's a great panel right there.
The last, I think it was a 2-page spread. The last couple pages are also great, where it's like everyone just hanging out, and they've called in, the like reserve members, I guess, Dial H and the Wonder Twins. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's very, very good.
Yeah, I definitely need more.
Agreed.
Over at Image, we have Crossover number 1. Which, so I read this last night, or yesterday afternoon, I guess, and I messaged you, Brian, and kind of twisted your arm into reading it.
Yeah, well, you were like, did you read it? And I had been completely on the fence about it just because I really am trying to limit how much new stuff I start. But you were like, I was like, should I read it? And you're like, yeah, I think you probably should. So I picked it up, and I did. And as you asked me what I thought of it, and I was like, I think I really like it.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair reaction. I will start with, this is so much my shit.
Oh yeah.
Like, I loved this. This is just right over home plate for me. Donnie Cates writing, Jeff Shaw on art, D. Kniff on colors, and John J. Hill lettering.
So in the Donnie Cates writes a little, a page of back matter, kind of explaining kind of where some of this came from, and like one of the last things he says in it is, "I have no earthly idea if this book is even going to work or not." And I'm like, okay, so now I feel completely justified in my feeling of, I think I like it, and not knowing or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and the thing I think I said to you, and this is true for me, this is absolutely Donnie Cates writing. I don't think Donnie Cates is trying to be anyone else.
Nope.
But the ideas he plays with are so Grant Morrison and Brian K. Vaughan. I think Brian K. Vaughan is the one I really like locked in on.
I could feel
reading
that
through it.
Maybe even
I think
little
that's
Jeff
why
Lemire
it's where it does
thrown
for me.
in there.
So okay, what is this weird ass book?
Yeah.
It is set in the real world where people read comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I love, it does that thing that a lot of creator-owned books do that are playing with comics history, where it opens with quotes. And it opens with a pair of quotes. One by Frederick Wortham, who wrote Seduction of the Innocent, which was the essay or whatever that led to the creation of the comics code authority,
Yep.
and yeah.
Yep.
The world of the comic book is the world of the strong, the ruthless, the bluffer, the shrewd deceiver, the torturer, and the thief. In comic books, life is worth nothing. There is no dignity of a human being. Followed by Todd McFarlane, kids love chains. Which, like, kids love chains in the context I know he meant it,
Yes.
is the most Todd McFarlane quote in history. Kids love chains, like, as a follow-up to that Wortham quote, and just, like, the world this was written in.
Yes.
Like, definitely takes on some French philosophy, Michel Foucault. You know, we all live in a gilded cage, kind of.
Yep. And if
context.
you have any questions that there's kind of meaning in putting those two together, all you have to do is read the next 2 pages of introduction to this series.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's very much about, like, the opening idea here is, well, Superman is at least as real as anyone in the real world because of how he impacts people and will exist after us and existed before us, and someday when we're all dead and go into space, we'll send Superman into space.
Yeah.
In some form. And that idea leads into this sort of cataclysm 3 years earlier in Denver, where comic book, in the most, like, crossover crisis kind of way, comic book characters burst out into Denver and basically wreck the city fighting. And I love the little cameos of, not only do they name check Superman, but there is what definitely appears to be the Tick in one of these shots. Pretty sure there's a Ben Grimm in the background somewhere.
There are a lot of homage shots that aren't directly these characters, but their outlines are somewhat recognizable, shall we say. Yeah.
And, like, that's the part of this that I think reading the solicit text I expected. But then we jump to the present and follow what I think is going to be one of our main characters. And I say this because there are a couple of points where the narration does say, but the book is not about this.
Well, but it does say, it specifically with Elle, it does say it's about her.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have Elle, or Ellie, which is short for Ellipses, which is the best name ever. And, like, the potential and the unknown and 3 little dots, which also then makes me think of, like, Kirby Crackle. Like, there's some really smart stuff in here.
Yeah, there is. The other one that I thought was, like, the most depressingly real world insertion, right, was she's walking and we just get this billboard that's solid white with black letters that says, God hates masks, lowbaptistministry.com.
And
which is, like, the most real world thing that would happen.
Yeah. I mean, it is absolutely real world, I think, specifically in channeling I know down here. Like, if I drive up to say, visit my parents, I will pass so many billboards that are just like, hell is real, and stuff like that.
Yep.
This was not a joke about people complaining about wearing masks in 2020. That was apparently, like, this part of the book was done and scripted before.
Yeah, no, I did not read that in any kind of modern context.
Kate's had to answer questions about it on Twitter because people thought it was that contemporary.
Okay, yeah. Well, and on the next page, you really get your answer to that because there's a protester holding up a sign that says, "Pray the capes away," right?
Yeah. So Ellie works in a comic shop. That is, we learn one of the, if not the only in this area, it is one of the few comic shops left that sells what they call pre-crisis comics, which are comics that were printed by Marvel and DC, etc., about superheroes before this cataclysm in Colorado.
Correct.
Because after that, the government, like, had those burned, and now we get, like, Rawhide Kid and Super Cop, which are the examples we see here, as these sort of, like, government propaganda comics. And the shop is being picketed, I would say, like, I mean, I guess there's one panel where it pulls out and we see probably 20 people, but it feels like pretty heavily picketed
Yep.
by religious types. The types who give religion a very bad name.
Agreed.
And this is, I think, where kind of the sort of Brian K. Vaughan vibes for me kick in, just because it does feel so small and grounded and personal against this big crazy backdrop. I also love that Ellie's always wearing this mask.
Yes.
Like this domino mask. Her family's trapped in Colorado under the dome. Someone decided they would put up a dome that traps in all the superheroes, and she managed to get out while separated from her family before it went up, but her family's stuck there. And then she and the store owner see a kid maybe shoplifting a comic on the security camera, and the kid is from a comic book. Like she has like dot pattern on her and everything like that, because
Like
she's
newsprint dots.
yeah,
Yes.
literally from a comic.
Right.
And like everyone's shitty to her except Ellie, who is cool.
I want to take a super moment right here and point out. So when we say that, the art style on this is super unique and cool.
Mm-hmm.
So like her face and hair and her T-shirt, the top, we just see a little piece of her T-shirt, are this newsprint dot, right?
Yeah.
So like are clearly from a comic book. But then like her overshirt and her jacket and her jeans and her shoes and her gloves are all not this newsprint dot, because presumably they're from our world.
Yeah.
Like it's a super unique styling that is clearly going to convey a very clear message of types. Right?
Yes. From there, things kind of escalate. The preacher who is sort of leading the assholes out in front of the store confronts his son, who shows up about having a comic book, and goads his son into like throwing a Molotov cocktail into the shop, while Ellie is talking to Ava, trying to figure out what's up. And that's also where we learn this is about him also, kind of, and maybe a love story.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be a love story or not, but it's definitely about the two of them, and yeah, he is not going to, which we sense his reluctance even in the beginning of this.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah.
Well, and the sort of hook we get here at the end is Ellie has asked Ava, "How did you get out?" And she says, "Well, someone helped me out. And I don't know who he is, but I can draw you a picture." And the last page of this is the picture Ellie has drawn, which is like a kid's pencil drawing of Superman.
Specifically, since we say the text boxes read, it's about more than superheroes and mega events. This is a story, and then we see that picture about hope, and you're like, oh well, okay, that's
Yeah.
The inference is very clearly. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I am just
me,
so into this.
Yeah.
If you like weird meta stories, which I love, you should absolutely check this book out.
Yeah. This is like I said, I think I really like, and then I love you turn the page and it's just it's just 3 ellipses.
Yep.
Ellipses, yeah, like great. But yeah, I think I'm really gonna like this.
Yeah. And as far as I know, this is an ongoing. I thought when this was first announced it was a mini-series, but I don't actually see anything other than, I think the fact that it was called Crossover made me think that.
Right.
So I believe this is.
If I had to guess, especially kind of knowing Donny Cates and how he works, my guess is he probably has like a 12-issue story in mind, in kind of case it doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he has some end points that he could hit, but
yeah,
I think this is potentially an ongoing.
I would certainly read an ongoing of this.
Yeah.
Black Widow #3. This is another one you got caught up on this week.
I did.
Right?
I read 2 and 3 today. Okay, and I was a little hesitant with the first one about kind of the whole trope of, oh, let's kidnap a character and brainwash them and make them think they're living this other life kind of thing.
Yeah, I still have a little bit the let's say aftertaste of Welcome to Pleasant Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's some things in this one that I think make it a bit more palatable and a lot more interesting. And some of that is specifically like the three people you could make a very strong argument who know her best in the world,
Uh-huh.
right? Are all like really, really conflicted about whether or not they should try to get her out of this.
Yeah, like I love the way that Kelly Thompson has chosen to use especially Hawkeye and Bucky here.
Yep.
And then the character who we learn is also in the mix in this issue is Yelena,
Yes. Yeah.
which so happy about. Just because I loved the setup in issue 2, and I'm so happy to already know who
it is. I'm glad they did not drag that out. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's so smart to place them basically in this position of almost paralysis.
Yep.
Trying to decide what's best for Nat in a way when they can't really ask.
Yeah.
And I like that because one, I think it gives them, it makes sense that they would be there. I think it gives Kelly Thompson a way to argue out the pros and cons of really, is this a good thing for her?
Right.
But it also keeps them at a distance where they're not, and Yelena makes clear, do not come in and make choices for her. You will make this worse.
Yes.
It keeps them from like having the autonomy in a book about Black Widow.
And can I say how ridiculously, amazingly well I think she did with handling Clint going in to talk, because Clint does go in and talk to her.
Yeah.
In the second one.
Yeah, he tries to like suss out what's going on.
But
and is
like,
she just undercover?
Yeah. But like handles it completely the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like amazing. Yeah. Like even when he finds out she's got a kid.
Yeah, well, and I love the mystery with the kid because if there was any doubt after 2 that it is actually her kid, Yelena says, no, I've already come in and done the test. I don't know how, but this is her kid.
Yeah.
It is hers and her husband's.
Yep.
We also in this issue see sort of
fiance, right?
Oh yeah, fiance.
Yeah.
See sort of the shadowy cabal that is pulling the strings, and I love this too. It's like how do we beat her? Well, let's just make her happy and take her out of commission. Like let's make her not want to fight us anymore.
But then of course there's somebody in this cabal that's just can't deal with her being happy.
Yeah, he has to have his vengeance. He has to win.
Yeah. I do love the intelligence of. There's a point in, I think it's issue 2, where Arcade is like, what are we going to do about these two? Hawkeye, specifically talking about Hawkeye and Winter Soldier, and they're like, don't do anything, just let them sit there. Look, they're not interfering, they're not causing problems. Don't make things worse by.
Yeah. They've spent 2 issues just sitting in the bushes. Like,
yeah,
they're fine.
I love that somebody was smart enough to go, if they're not causing a problem, don't make them cause a problem. I kind of get the feeling like that has to be Viper, right?
Yeah.
She's the only one in that group that was probably intelligent. Maybe Snapdragon, who would have been intelligent enough to not get that. Yeah.
No, I think this is. I feel like we say this a lot, and maybe just Kelly Thompson is always topping herself.
Yeah.
But I feel like this is some of the best writing of Kelly Thompson's I have read, and that is a high bar to cross.
That is a very high bar to cross, because I mean I've made it very clear at this point. I will read just about anything she has earned that with me.
Yeah.
That I love, specifically I love how she writes female here, and I mean that's just true.
Yeah.
She does such a great job with them. Huh. Imagine that.
Go figure.
Okay, can I also say that I absolutely love the idea of they have introduced that her kid's name is Stevie.
Yes.
Steve. Like, of course. By the way, I think it's her. Is it her dog's name is Logan?
Yep.
But her kid's name is Stevie, and they have introduced this idea that he is essentially fucking Houdini in that they literally cannot keep him, in a playpen or in a room or anywhere else. Like he can escape anything. And it's
I wonder who he gets that from.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, duh.
Yeah, at one point her fiance shows up and she's in bed and he comes in and they're like, very clearly they are about to
engage.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know why I paused. It's not like this kid is hiding here in the room with us.
Right, yeah.
But then we hear from like the foot of the bed him say, ducks.
Yeah.
There we go. They're about to duck. Nice. And they're both just like, God damn it, how did this kid get in here?
Yeah. And I love the fact that we first get the babysitter is like, okay, they tell him that he's really, really hard and he will try to escape and this and the other. She's like, okay. They come back and she's like, wow, he really is good at this. And she was like, well, was it okay? And she was like, yeah, I've handled worse. And then it's later in the next issue, we find out it's Yelena. It's like, okay, this is perfect.
Light bulb click.
Yes. Beautiful.
While we are here in the Kelly Thompson corner, Captain Marvel number 23, in which we learn the most important thing in the history of the Marvel Universe.
And that
Jeff
is?
the Landshark is still alive in the future and may be invulnerable.
Maybe so. I'm so happy Jeff's still alive.
Jeff, like Jimmy Olsen, has an eye patch.
His is a Band-Aid, though, and I kind of like it.
He's got an eye under there. It's just fine. He just enjoys wearing it.
He just enjoys wearing and the idea of it. Yeah, I love it. And again, I read 22 and 23, which was actually perfect because this new arc feeds completely off of the Captain Marvel The End storyline.
Yes.
So there was a one-shot called Captain Marvel The End.
And I love that we were both back then like, she'll come back to this. There's no way she doesn't come back to this. This is too good, and these characters are too good.
Yeah, and
here we
guess
are.
What? Here we are. And yeah, so the Captain Marvel of the End, right? Sacrificed herself to restart the sun. Like that. Okay, spoiler for a book that's been out for 8 months now or whatever.
I'm gonna put an asterisk here to come back to because I have some thoughts.
Okay. But Carol is with Rhodey and Jessica and Hazmat, and they find this crashed spaceship and something attacks them, and Carol gets pulled forward in time to this same timeline, presumably just a few months after that time's version of herself has sacrificed herself to restart the sun.
Yep.
So she gets pulled in by, all of these characters from that we met and from the future, which are, a young adult Danny Cage now and a more grown up, fully adult leader position Jennifer Takeda as Hazmat. Jerry Drew has grown up and is now the Spider. Clinton Natasha had a kid, and Katie Barton is a sharpshooter. We get Irene LeBeau, who is clearly Rogue and Gambit's daughter. Yep. I mean, we get all of these wonderful, wonderful characters that we love so much, and a couple of new ones which I guess Emma Frost isn't new. She was in it, but one of the things is she will not come out of her diamond form, and we need to talk about that in a minute.
Yeah,
I'm going to come back to that.
I incidentally just love the way that Kelly Thompson will pepper Emma Frost into just about everything she writes.
You know what? And the way she does it, though, is I'm perfectly fine with it because the Emma that she puts in is my favorite Emma.
I know, right? It's just,
it's the same Emma that's in the X books right now.
And the same Emma that's in Jessica Jones.
Yes, yeah. But we find out there's another superhero child that is with this group that we did not meet before. And let's say that I think this is a worthy character to have in this book.
I mean, maybe not, though, because the hammer won't come when she calls.
This is true. But we get Thor's daughter.
Yeah.
Brigitte. Yes.
I was super excited when she showed up.
Me too. I also, God, can I tell you how much I love Carol in this book?
So much?
Yeah. Um, so there's a point where she goes to invite Brigitte to come with them because they need a group to go meet with this thing that they think is very clearly a trap or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
and she, first of all, she's making uh um Emma go with her. Emma doesn't want to go, but she's making Emma go. And then so Emma's like, okay, if I'm going, there's somebody else that needs to come with us. And she goes and introduces her to Brigitte. And Carol, and she's like, yeah, I'm not going to go with you. I'm not a hero. And Carol's like, yeah, pretty much all the heroes that I know wouldn't call themselves that. It's really, it's just people that are willing to try to do what they can to make a difference in the world, right? She was like, but if you don't want to come, that's fine too, right?
Yeah.
And then, so when she shows up, she's like, am I late? And Carol's like, right on time. She's like, I don't have Mjolnir. It won't come to me. And Carol's like, okay. Do you still want me? I do. Then let's go rescue our friends and fuck some shit up. And Carol's like, yeah, this is my kind of team. This is it.
I've got to tell you, now that we're sort of getting up to the reveal in this issue, even with this character on the goddamn cover, I was so not prepared for who Ove or Ove, whatever.
Correct.
Whatever it's supposed to be.
Yep.
I was so not prepared for who Ove is.
Yep.
Or just the ostensible utopia that he has opened up. It's goddamn Namor's kid.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, we find out Luke Cage is still alive.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, so they go and they finally make it to this place, and it's Namor's kid. So first of all, who is Brigitte's mother? Right, that's a question.
Yeah.
And then we get Ove, and then you get the question of who is Ove's mother.
Yeah.
Right. But can I say, of course, he is only half shirtless. Maybe that's because he's only half Namor's kid.
Yeah.
Right. But wow, just so much.
I was vaguely reminded of, remember the Exiles issue where they had hippie Namor?
Yep. Yes.
I was reminded vaguely of that character design.
It really makes me wonder if that was an inspiration for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't wait to see what happens here next.
Same.
This is real good.
So
the whole Emma not leaving her diamond form.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts behind that?
I do have a thought.
I do too. What is yours?
I think it's that Emma doesn't like the fact that time has passed and that she has aged.
Yep, that's exactly my idea too. Or maybe she doesn't age when she's in her diamond form, so she won't leave it. Yeah. She can't stand the idea of being old. Yes. Yep, that's it.
I also want to come back to this idea that Carol sacrificed herself to restart the sun.
Yes.
Which we learn also about the attacks on Earth that led to the status quo and how no one really knows what happened.
Right.
Maybe it was aliens, there was some kind of virus, and then the sun started to die. And obviously, this could easily be coincidence, and it could also still be right, and be coincidence led to, oh, we can put these pieces together and tell a story. But do you know where my mind went rereading the sun started dying beat in this issue?
To Empire?
Yes.
Yeah.
I really wonder if either this is not doing some early seeding for whatever is coming after Empire that we've seen teased.
Well, there's two things that make that super more coincidental, but real sus coincidental. One is that it's this crashed alien spaceship, right? That something attacked her out of and drug her forward in time. And super sus that there's a crash spaceship right after Empire ends that does this, right?
Yeah.
2, very clearly whatever attacked them is related to the plant that attacks them in the future somehow, right? And we get this idea of when they first approach the spaceship that something is leaking out of it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, gee, that doesn't sound like something that could cause some sort of virus or infection or something like that, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think, I mean, I think it's very clear this is all somehow related.
Yeah, even if it's, and when I say coincidental, like, I feel like maybe while Empire was being planned, and I mean, knowing how far out Marvel plans events and how they have their retreats and talk through things, it could well be that Kelly Thompson said, hey, I'd like a hand on the ball at some point and think here's how I'd like to work it in. But it may also be that, like, the end stuff was happening and simultaneously the Empire planning was happening, and once each of them saw what was going on, like, maybe they found a way to tie it together.
Yep.
And because it would make sense for future Carol to make that sacrifice if it's a Kree problem.
Yeah.
If it's a problem the Kree started. So, I mean, this is all speculation, but
Sure.
like, I really wonder if this isn't building to being part of that story that we know is coming out of Empire someday. And like Kelly Thompson getting a hand on the ball at that event.
Okay, now, Alec, can you tell me the one thing that was mentioned in this 2 issues that had me probably the most excited, and yet I know nothing about it yet?
Well, we've already covered Jeff being alive.
Uh-huh.
What is it?
Do you remember where the things that attacked them when Carol showed up came from?
I do not.
From Limbo?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they don't know if magic is under the control of someone or is like in cahoots with someone. But either way, a future fully grown, adult magic is like, and like, I can't wait.
I wonder if this is one of the futures where magic is Sorcerer Supreme.
It could very, very well be. Yeah. Yep.
Well, speaking of magic and Emma Frost and X-Men, let's talk about Ten of Swords.
God, I cannot give high enough praise to all of the creators working on this.
Yeah, like this is
event.
I think X-Men number 14 is just a really good example too of how tightly everything is planned. Because so X-Men 14 essentially is a conversation between Apocalypse and Genesis.
Yep.
And
the history of what happened after he left
yes.
Arakko, yeah.
It is Genesis telling in linear order the history of Amanth's incursion into Arakko and the war between Arakko and Amanth. And I would say that 75% of the information in this, at least, is not actually new information.
Correct. I think you're correct, yeah. There's a lot of it that we knew, but seeing it put together in this order was a well-spent issue.
Yes. And we kind of alluded to this last week, too. Yeah. Like, with the reveal that it was Genesis, like, all of that felt seeded and earned. And this sort of goes back and shows how these, like, maybe a page at a time of history that we've gotten throughout other books all fit together, what the timeline is. And there are panels in this that are, I don't know if they're the same artist, because I forget which books we've seen which of these beats in before.
Yep.
But that are almost shot for shot, panel for panel recreations, at least.
Yeah.
Of these moments we've seen before. The scene, for example, where Genesis is going to meet with Annihilation.
Yep.
We've seen that shot. Some of the shots of the towers falling. We've seen, if not those exact panels, panel layouts, like, from different angles.
Yes.
Every major beat in this, with exception of, like, how the helm works, which I think we had enough to sort of piece together, we've been explicitly told, but this is sort of the reveal of what all of those bits add up to. This is pulling the picture back and seeing, the whole landscape.
Yeah. Can I point out something else that I noticed in this, and that is specifically in the conflict when Genesis and Annihilation fight,
Uh-huh.
right? That they both have these like offset kind of lightning blade curved
Mm-hmm.
swords. That it's I mean it's exactly the design that Apocalypse has for his sword, right?
Yeah.
And it's the design that she has for hers and that Amuth has for, but it is not the Twilight. Is it the Twilight sword that cut the
I think the Twilight Blade.
blade? Yeah, maybe that's the Twilight blade. Um, but so specifically, right? We have the helm that is this clearly has some sort of its own sentience in it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the way she describes it as it wants to dominate, and I want what it wants, therefore I
Yeah.
want to dominate.
Well, but the other person that wields a blade that's just like this is Pog or Pog.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder if the sword that Annihilation was wielding is Pog or Pog.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, that sword is also sentient and, has taken over. Yeah, yeah.
All along, X-Men has been Yu-Gi-Oh! Twist.
Yeah, I really liked this issue and how, we get this discussion and conversation between these two. And then, she's like, "Yeah, we'll see what happens
Yeah.
when we fight." And
I
then
also... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then I realized that I have to say, of the two issues that came out this week, this is not my favorite one.
Well, before we move on to the other, I want to shout out Sunny Go, who is the colorist in this.
Yes.
Because, I mean, especially early issue, but throughout, just like sense of light and shadow is really strong.
I can tell you there's a page, it's the next to last like panel page
Uh-huh.
where we come back from the telling of the story.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to say.
Yeah.
The pages that bookend this in
Yes.
the garden.
Yep.
Like the one you mentioned is great. There's also one I think it's literally the first page of art is this shot of Apocalypse standing under a tree. And even with like more muted colors, like this is the sun is starting to set versus now the sky is on fire beginning to end. Like even with the more muted colors, like it's just so like the leaves in the tree are warm and everything else feels cold and alone, and yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I love, so you mentioned we get the book in. So before she starts to tell the story, there's the two of them meeting, right? And we get this scene, we get this panel of them basically planting their swords in the ground.
Yes.
And then walking away hand in hand to have this conversation. That panel is just super, super. I think in addition to just being beautiful, I think that's foreshadowing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Then we have Marauders, which is
my favorite next book of the week because holy shit, there's so much to love about this.
Marauders is a party brought to you by George R.R. Martin. There's a lot I love about this issue.
Starting with the cover. Can we just talk about the cover?
Yes.
Which is Death and Storm dancing what has to be like the tango together.
Yeah.
Right? And he has a rose in his mouth and she's flipping her head back with her hair. Like it is just the most amazingly awesome thing.
Yeah, it is a fantastic cover, and we get like that moment of them literally dancing in the book too,
yes.
which is
yes.
I'm gonna say this: as great as everything that happens in this book is, my favorite page may be Jim Jasper's commentary on everyone's manners.
Yes, that's what I said. It's not like it's just the party. Like there is like every single different little piece of this book is beautiful. You turn, so you get that cover, you turn the page and the opening page is the menu that they're serving. And it's one of the text pages. And again, it's just awesome. I mean, it's chilled creme of Neptune's glaciers with honey drizzled fey wing. Like it's just these beautiful sounding horrific things that they're going to be eating, right?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, and then then we get Jim Jasper talking about that. Like I don't know. We get them coming to the party before it starts, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole idea is there's this dinner reception where they all are going to meet and have dinner and have this before the contest that is tomorrow start. And if you think the battle hasn't started during this dinner just because no one is wielding any weapons, you are sorely, sorely mistaken.
Yeah, I love everyone sizing each other up. My favorite is Magic and Gorgon
Yes,
trying to figure out which hand Iska prefers.
yes. And we get this flirtation between Storm and Death that is just beautiful.
I'd say there's also some flirtation between those two and Iska.
I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
Let's make something clear. X-Men is not any less horny now than it was before.
Well, we're gonna get to that at the very end because we're gonna get to that at the very end. So, Storm's comment is, so War comes up and it's like, why are you talking to her? She's the enemy. Blah 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 blah. This that and the other, right? And she's like, and Storm goes, I thought War would be more artful. But no, she's talking to Death. But no, it's you. And she takes the flower out of her drink and puts it behind his ear and says, you're going to be a problem, aren't you?
So
good. My god. And then, then we get, we get Storm and, or I'm sorry, Gorgon and Magic. Actually, I guess next it's just Magic meeting Pog or Pog, right?
Yeah. Magic or Magic.
Magic, Magic couldn't give a damn. Yeah.
What an idiot. You can't eat these.
Yeah. So they go in and, the dinner kind of starts or whatever. And, they're all here. And we find out that Lady Roma and Vesperday, the colony queen of Hot Hive, and, they're all here. Then the reception / dinner starts. And we get, I can't go through how many wonderful scenes we get between characters. We get Logan confronting Brian Braddock about, okay, we know Saturnine has control of all this, can just stop it. She's clearly horned for you, so just give her what she wants and make her stop. And no one has to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Logan and his direct just...
Hey, Wolverine knows how to cut to the quick.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, and he talks about her, and his response is, "I'm a married man," and Logan's like, "Yeah, I was married once, but you know who hasn't been married? Cypher, and Magic, and Cable. And if you don't do what needs to be done, maybe they won't ever get the chance because they might get killed." Yeah. So yeah, and then we get the discussion that starts, which is this might be my favorite, which is Magic and Gorgon sizing up the opponents, right?
Yeah.
And basically it starts with like Magic telling him, "Hey, War is right-handed," and he's like, "Yes, she is." And then she's like, and then they're looking at Pog or Pog, and she's like, "Yeah, that chonky dinosaur is gonna be a problem." And Gorgon's like, "Every beast has softness beyond their armor," which there's very clear, like because that's mentioned twice.
Yeah.
Right? Because Logan says something about, he's soft on the inside. She says something about he has no soft parts, and he's like, well, he's soft on the inside.
Yeah.
And then Gorgon makes a comment. Death favors his left side. And she's like, red root shrubbery may hide other eyes. Interesting. And then Magic says, the thing I can't figure out is, does Iska favor her right or her left? And Gorgon's like, let's find out. And so they walk up to start a conversation with her, right? And Iska, if you don't remember, is the one. It's Genesis' sister.
Yes.
And her mutant ability is she can't lose a fight. So it made her turn on them and join the Annihilation because Annihilation was going to win. So
Yeah.
her mutant power wouldn't let her not do that. But she turns, and her comment to them is, I won't listen to any whining that the fights won't be fair. To any whining about that the fights aren't going to be fair. And Gorgon's response is, I've never been in a fair fight. They all had to face me. She's like, you're not like the others from your island. And so they both stand there, and they both have a glass in their hand, and they both drop the glass, thinking, which one is she going to grab, right? That'll be her dominant hand. And of course, she just goes down and grabs both of them and catches everything that has spilled out and like doesn't spill a drop. To which Gorgon goes, ambidextrous. And Maggie, of course, should have guessed.
Yeah.
Right? And then she like makes to hand them back to them. And then Iska drops both of them, and then she's, now it's your turn. Right? And Magic won my heart here. Magic,
Thinking
like,
with portals.
yeah, she's like, there's no such thing as going low with someone from Limbo, and makes a portal to teleport the glasses back up above them so her and Gorgon can both catch them and catch all their drinks in them. It's like, oh my god. This tete-a-tete back and forth is just, it is everything I absolutely love about what's going on in these books right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the other thing that this has is it will not be afraid to turn it around and bring it back to what's really going on, because literally as soon as Iska walks away, Magic looks at Gorgon and says, so what is her soft spot? He's like, I don't know. Kill as many as you can as fast as you can. I fear that woman's sword will break us.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, but this is serious business. Yeah. Then we get Alex's favorite page.
Yes.
Which is
Wolverine
James
is
Jasper's
rude.
comments about the people that are there. Oh, so much.
Yeah.
We get Storm and Death and their flirtation and dance, right?
Yeah.
And he's something about, several people on your team, Cable and Wolverine and others have experienced death, but you never have you? And she's like, that's not true. I've experienced death all my life, just not mine. And I've had death around all my life. And literally you get the idea of, oh, she's literally dancing with death and talking about how she's danced with death all her life, and that's as close as she's ever allowed it to get.
Yeah.
Right? Which I'm super scared this is foreshadowing of what I predicted last episode.
Yeah, we will see.
Yeah. Then we get War trying to cheat, trying to poison Logan.
Which I feel like, I don't know if that moment is just kind of a feint to distract us from what Wolverine's about to do, and like make us think that Wolverine is the one in danger.
Yeah.
Or if like that is being seeded right before a big moment so that it gets forgotten.
Maybe.
And like can be
come back
pulled
around.
back out later. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because Logan basically confronts and stands up and talks to Saturnine and says, why are you even doing this? You have control. And basically kind of what he said to Brian, right?
Yeah.
But he's saying it directly to her, right? And she's like, yeah, people could die. And death is the great change. Everything dies. To which Logan says, yeah, lady, those are some famous last words. And then his claws go through Saturnine.
Yep.
So don't know what the fuck's gonna happen there. But I love everything about this entire book. Like, This is probably my favorite one so far in Ten of Swords.
Well, I think it makes sense too, because it's also like, as great as seeing everyone getting ready has been, this is our first picture of the whole cast of this story together.
I will already say, as long as they don't, and they don't even have to like have a perfect ending to this at this point. As long as they don't ruin the ending, this will be my favorite crossover event from Marvel, possibly ever.
I mean, I'm going to stand by my expectation that this does not end so much as it, like,
Correct.
shakes up status quo and informs the next phase of.
I mean, yeah. I think that's very. Yeah, there's a prophecy that gets put out at some point that's something about because it ends with "make of that what you will."
Yeah.
Which is something about like moonlight. The moonlight under a black moon, the two will be rejoined or something like that.
Oh, I think that was actually an X-Men.
Was that an X-Men before that? It probably was, but essentially it's about
Maybe.
kind of what's gonna come next or how this can resolve, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, there's some interesting thoughts about that. Yeah, but can't give high enough praise.
Yeah, it's at the end of X-Men. After the 3 laws are printed again.
Oh yeah. Speaking of which, we talked about the fact that we would get back to how both sides are.
Let me read the prophecy first.
Okay.
Only under the black moon will the two become one. A white light will judge them, and a red land will see them split forever. Make of that what you will.
Yeah, that clearly is going to come to pass. We just don't know exactly how.
Yeah.
But we also get the 3 laws of Oroku. What are they, Alex?
Make more mutants.
Number 1, same law. I love it.
Destroy our enemies.
Yep.
Defend this broken land.
Yes. Yeah, the first law of both of them is make more mutants.
Yep.
So, they're just as horned as all the X-Men.
I mean, let's be honest. We've met Solemn. There was no question about that.
You are right. You are correct. Beautiful. Just the best. God, I can't wait for more.
All right. Is it still good? Brian, Origins number 1.
I really liked the setup that was in this book. This is a new book from from Boom Studios.
Yep.
The creators are Lee Krieger, Joseph Oxford, and Arash Amel. The script is by Clay McLeod Chapman, and the art's by Jacob Rebelka. I will 100% say, if you did not already pick this up, my recommendation will be to get it in trade. There is an introduction in this, but this just from the pacing that I can already see in it, this is written for trade, 100%.
Gotcha.
That being said, it's the art in this is absolutely beautiful. Super lush greens to start out, and then we transition into like some red and darker color, but it's just like beautifully done art. I love it. But essentially what we find out is that all of humanity is dead, except maybe for this one person that we meet who finds DNA of this person named David, and basically takes that DNA and regrows him as a baby. And then we cut to several years later, and her and David are out on this mission. She has not aged any, but he is essentially a young man at this point. And there's comments about him being the last human. So clearly she is something else, right?
A robot. I bet she's a robot.
Yeah, I'm thinking she probably is. And something about, that they can't let the network find him. This whole time she's been hiding him from the network, right? And we approach the point of him saying that it's time, that the network now knows that he's here, and he has to do this thing that they're calling the upload, which I'm guessing is all of his knowledge and memories being given back to him. But essentially that's where the first one ends. Like we're essentially introduced to these characters, kind of told possibly who they are, not even for certain, and then that's it. So
cool.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good, but reservations are withheld until more is here, because yeah.
The Dreaming Waking Hours number 4. Ruin tries to make his way back into the Dreaming, and the play is the thing. Hellblazer Rise and Fall number 2. John Constantine wakes up in bed with Lucifer, and the two of them decide to work together for the most part, tentatively. Not so well, it turns out, to stop the demon who is wreaking havoc in London. Justice League number 56, Detective Chimp discovers that Comet the Robot Horse has tricks up its sleeve. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, Batman, Hush. Brian.
This so the Tales from the Dark Multiverse are the ones where super big events ended badly because it's from the Dark Multiverse. This may be one of the most interesting takes on one of those that I have read so far. I really, really enjoyed this one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Chew number 4. If you're going to dispose of dead bodies by dumping them in a shark tank, don't fall in. Coffin Bound number 8. While this series has mostly been about its main characters dealing with their death coming, this issue is about Taka's friend dealing with Taka's death having happened. The Amazing Spider-Man number 51.LR, Brian.
This is Black Cat and Doctor Strange setting out on a mission for something. MJ comes back to New York, and the Spider folks are terrorizing everybody else. This also has my other quote of the week.
Brian's quote of the week, part 2.
So, Black Cat and Spidey stole the hand of Vishanti in the last issue, and Steven now has realized this and tracks down Felicia to find it. He comes in, and her comment to him is, "Don't I have to invite you in? I'm not a vampire, Miss Hardy. Then why do you dress like that?" God, I love Felicia sometimes.
You want to talk about the most cognitive dissonance I've ever had seeing a panel of a comic book?
What's
Norman Osborn pulling Mary Jane out of a car.
Right? That was so weird.
Atlantis Attacks number 4, Brian.
Wow, I did not know that. Was not 100% certain that this series was ever going to get finished. I'm super glad that it is. And we see what's really going on behind the whole Pan and Atlantis and Jimmy Woo and the whole everything. We finally get our what's going on here.
Avengers number 38, Brian.
The history of Mephisto's relationship with the Avengers?
I believe the word you're looking for is Mephistory.
The Mephistory. Wow. Including past, present, and future. And how he has manipulated a family to bring back a character that just kind of scares the hell out of me being back alive again.
Also, cribs are no good when your baby can fly.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy number 8. Rocket Raccoon does his best Benoit Blanc. And we learn that it is time once again for the Snark Wars. The Immortal Hulk number 39. This book gets harder and harder to explain. The leader controlling one Hulk goads another Hulk into killing a third Hulk, while a fourth Hulk watches Bruce get kidnapped. Miles Morales, Spider-Man number 19. Miles and friends, and father, and Captain America take the fight to Green Goblin and Ultimatum. Thor number 9. We learn what Donald Blake has been up to for a very long time.
Okay.
And now he's loose on Earth. U.S. Agent number 1. This is kind of a weirdly structured story. Everything has gone bad when it begins. And a lot of this issue is just kind of how did U.S. Agent wind up in this small town? And it was mostly because some former S.H.I.E.L.D. bureaucrat wanted to piss off a former supervisor and sent the most annoying hero necessary to deal with cleanup after a fire at a defunct shield front. I love that this book is entirely rooted in the pettiness of mid-level management. Web of Venom, Empire's End, number 1. If you are a Kree Skrull investigative unit going to look into why a distress signal from a bunch of escape pods that are dead in the metaphorical water of deep space have started going off, and they're filled with black goo, don't open them.
Almost like you shouldn't read the book either.
Nah, that'll be fine. Wolverine, Black, White, and Blood, number 1.
This is this is an anthology book that is in all inks and red. So we get 3 stories in this one. We get a Jerry Duggan story, a Matthew Rosenberg story, and a Declan Shalvey story. They're all good. The art is beautiful. I would pick this up more as honestly though, almost more as an art piece, director's cut type book than I would for. I mean, the stories are so short that they really just don't have time to build in anything more than just like a single scene or set piece.
So,
which is fine.
Really from the same place as the Batman Black and White that this maybe is riffing on.
Absolutely. That being said, like I said, the art is you can pick it up just for the art alone to appreciate it because it's beautiful. The style of using the red for things is very, very well done. There's one, for instance, where it's Weapon X, right? And as he goes into his rage, the boxes that describe him, like the editorial boxes, start getting more and more red, going from black and white.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and then then they taper back off as he comes out of it, right? I'm sorry, that's not a Weapon X one. That's just a Logan one. But as he goes into this frenzy, like they're kind of pink at one point, and then they turn to a light red. Yeah, so super, super cool. Which builds to this when it's solid red, this beautiful whole page spread of Wolverine just being like, what you can imagine is the most Wolverine ever on this pile of bodies, right? And yeah, it's very, very cool for what it is. Just
cool.
Don't expect this to be a story-driven heavy Wolverine book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vignettes.
Yes, absolutely.
Horizon Zero Dawn number 4. This is the last issue of this miniseries. And it brings to kind of a close Talana's sort of search for purpose. The new character who she meets mentions that he's heading out to the Forbidden West, which, if you play the Horizon games, Horizon Forbidden West is the name of the next game.
Yeah.
And it promises more of Talana in the next game as well. So very much, I think, ultimately a stage setting introduction to this new character and update for what's going on with Talana. I imagine a lot of the relevant information will probably get recapped at some point in the game, but if you're a fan of the games, played the first, plan to play the next, I think it's worth checking this out.
Yeah.
It also gives us our first look at a big new machine that I won't get into the mechanics of it because I don't want to spoil stuff for people who are gonna play the game and want to find it out there. But gives me the impression that it's not going to boil down to, well, just shoot the darn thing. For some of the new enemies, which is reductive. There are some enemies in the original game that take a lot of skill and patience and strategy, but ultimately you're still shooting the darn thing. So that's the other sort of takeaway here, is maybe some implications for shaking up gameplay a little bit, which is a weird thing to say about a comic book. It could be totally off base, but The way it's presented, I don't think it is.
Yeah, a little chance to tell some story set up behind.
Yeah, like, it's fun. It's good to see Talana get a little more space. She's a cool character.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the side quests in Horizon are really well done and give you a sense of who these characters are, but she's sort of like one of the biggest side characters.
Agreed.
So, yeah. All right, what's coming out this week that we're going to read? Brian, tell me about Punchline.
So this is a one-shot that is kind of, essentially, I think, kind of a history and story of, the person that becomes Punchline. I mentioned how much I actually like what they've done with this character and not just, rehashed some of the same stuff, which was very surprising and wonderful to me. And so I can't wait to kind of get a history and see what they do with this.
I'm going to jump in on this one too and mention that I learned this week that one of my favorite Scott Snyder era characters is being reintroduced for Tynan's run in this one shot as sort of a to use Tynan's words from this interview, the perfect reflection of Punchline. Do you know who that character is, Brian?
No.
Harper Row.
Oh.
Bluebird is back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I am going to mention Marvel Action Chillers #1, which you may say, hey, you brought that a month ago, Alex. I did, and then I found out it had been delayed a month.
Yeah.
So if you are not ready for Halloween to end, / if you want some Ironheart and Doctor Strange and eventually Wasp and other characters written by Jeremy Whitley,
and you should.
You want to grab this book. Unsurprisingly, Brian, you have all of the Ten of Swords stuff.
I literally just wrote all the Ten of Swords stuff.
Which, to be specific, is Marauders 15, Excalibur 14, and Wolverine #7.
Yeah. I just finished telling you how this is probably my favorite Marvel crossover ever. I love it.
Yep. And finally, Dark Knight's Death Metal Infinite Hours Extreme one-shot. That's Extreme with 3 X's.
3 X's. Well, would you expect anything, Lex, for Lobo? Come on.
Not from the main man, no. I know that I said recently that, like, some of the one-shots I've struggled a little with. But this is one I'm very excited for. 1, I've heard really positive buzz about it. 2, I really need to know what happens with that little tease of Lobo working for Lex Luthor that we got in the Death Metal Guidebook, I think Guidebook it was called. And 3, we are introduced in this issue to the Batman who frags. So, need I say more?
Nope.
In that case, we'd like to thank Chase Parker for our intro voiceover. You can visit our website at panelologypodcast.com, support us at patreon.com/panelology, get merch at bit.ly/panelologymerch, capital P, capital M, or send us letters, questions, or whatever at bit.ly/panelologymailbag, capital P, capital M. I'm Alex.
And I am Brian. Go read comics because there's a lot of good ones out there.